Memory is subjective. Truth is interpreted. Art is dramatized and distilled impressions. Narrators are unreliable. Words and silence can both be violent. People are more nuanced than opinions. Rhetoric is a craft. Trauma is inherited. Stories are sacred. Diaspora, Pilgrim. There are infinite shades of green to be found in the rolling patchwork fields of my ancestral homeland, where farmers mow around hawthorn trees and standing stones to appease the fair folk. Stinging nettle flourishes over the stone ruins of castles, churches, and graveyards, like the hilltop where my great-great-great-grandfather rests beneath a cracked and faded, ivy-covered headstone. A local guide navigates narrow, winding roads, naming the indigenous edible plants and wildflowers growing from stone walls. He tells his passenger how these beaches along the southern coast were created by a tsunami. The cliffs and caves are beloved by smugglers, while lighthouse keepers warn vessels away from the treacherous rocks beneath the tide. The wind here is so salty it strips the trees, makes more abundant fishing, and flavors world-famous whiskey made from rye grown in nearby fields. Those roofless, one-room husks peppering the countryside are called famine cottages, the guide says. During the 800-year occupation that sent half the population to an early grave or a foreign shore, British landlords would burn down a starving tenant family's cottage while evicting them, to shame them and ensure they had nowhere to call home. Monuments in every town square honor fallen rebels from local risings throughout the generations that took refuge in thick hedges to practice their religion and teach their native tongue to their children. ICE is raiding workplaces, schools, churches, hospitals, even immigration hearings, tearing children from their parents' arms. A diaspora pilgrim passes through gateway stones into a ring fort relic filled with bluebells and moss-covered trees. They leave an ocean-smoothed stone as an offering to the fairies, crouch barefoot by the hearth, and tell their tale to the owls and magpies. Some of the kidnapped are sent to concentration camps and tortured. Many simply disappear. A diaspora pilgrim lights 3 candles at Bridget's holy well for 3 dear friends back home in need of healing. They wash their blistered feet with a colorful cloth, then tie the cloth to a nearby branch for a blessing. In sanctuary cities, neighbors fight back against masked agents throwing rocks, blocking roads, and shouting legal advice in Spanish to those being taken. A diaspora pilgrim summits the Hill of Terra, where fallen rebels rest in the mound of hostages beneath their bare feet. Facing the hawthorn tree, they press both palms against the stone of destiny. Police deploy tear gas and rubber bullets against protesters. MAGA sends in the National Guard, then the Marines, testing the waters for martial law. A diaspora pilgrim honors their ancestors with a sacred vow to Lu on the summer solstice. Never will I bend my knee to an English king, nor to any save the high kings once crowned by the Sidhe, here where the veil is thinnest. Can you just not talk to me about leaving? What else would I talk about right now? We don't have to talk right now. Okay. Hey, comrade, I know things got heated last time we talked, but I just wanted to check in and let you know I'm here for you if you need anything. You mean when I asked you to vote and you said no, then offered to come sit on my porch and shoot maggots when they come for me instead? Well, actually, I'm good, thanks. It's a Black culture thing. I'm not apologizing for getting out. It's a Black culture thing. I'm too sick to keep fighting. It's a Black culture thing. Okay. I remember the faces of those who did not survive what I have survived. I carry their stories in my scars, speak their suffering in my resilience. I'm ready to talk about the fear. In the days following the election, everyone in my community who wasn't actively suicidal was doing suicide prevention work. The lesbians in my life checked in first, of course. I passed them flyers about mental health resources to distribute. Anarchists were there from the start, too. They and a small handful of cishet allies were essential to my escape plan, and when I reached out through secure channels, they were ready. While I drove around gathering supplies, I avoided the MAGA trucks doing victory laps along the highway because I was afraid of what they might feel emboldened to do if they saw my bumper stickers. I said goodbye to a few dear friends I trusted enough to tell that I was leaving. I sat in rooms full of people who didn't know and tried to be intentional about my parting impression. Most people were acting like nothing had changed. Their denial was rooted in the same fear baked into the fabric of our society that made us all so vulnerable to propaganda. Nobody wanted politics to ruin the upcoming holiday season. Their choice to look away hurt, but nowhere near as much as it hurt to see real fear in the eyes of friends who understood what was coming. That fear hardened into resolve as we discussed the different faces of resistance and tried to memorize each other's faces before parting indefinitely. I felt like a ghost moving through the world I was leaving behind. Some goodbyes were kept cryptic for the sake of plausible deniability. I'm going to take that winter holiday road trip I was telling you about, I said, knowing my neighbor would understand I wasn't coming back. Would you mind picking up my mail for a while? I kept reminding myself that I wasn't doing anything illegal. If I wanted to leave, I was allowed to leave. The point was to leave while that was still true. The IRS can get in line behind the Social Security Administration and the insurance companies, I told the financial agent who'd reminded me there could be penalties for accessing my own emergency funds if my paper trail, which they'd fight every step of the way, didn't properly satisfy their definition of an emergency. I'm too sick to work, I've lost everything, and now you've all voted in the next Hitler. It is what it is at this point. I burned every journal and sensitive document that I hadn't packed. I put out food and cold weather shelters for the neighborhood cats. I took down my Halloween decorations and hung a Christmas wreath. I washed the last dish. I took out the last bag of trash. I sat in my favorite armchair looking around my apartment and trying to wrap my mind around the fact that it was for the last time. Everything that hadn't fit in my car was exactly where I'd left it, as though I really was just taking that road trip after all. I locked up, slipped out the back, started my car, and drove north. I vividly remember grandfather's smirk, and how the lines in his face were the only way to sometimes tell it apart from his somewhat softer smile. Eternally amused, he sat in the comfiest chair in the quietest corner of every room he occupied with the nose game on. He delighted in the presence of his grandchildren as we became more numerous throughout the years. He had a certain twinkle he'd get in his eye watching us crawl, toddle, walk, run, roller skate, roller blade, bike, and otherwise cavort around him. Holly Hill was home. We all lived in separate houses nearby, but grandfather's house with the towering holly tree, the very best sledding hill, a stream, a barn out back by the woods peppered with paintball and hunting forts, and even a pond next door, was home to all in the diaspora of the Cochrane clan. I remember catching and later releasing box turtles, frogs, toads, katydids, crickets, caterpillars, potato bugs, and of course fireflies at Holly Hill. I remember honeysuckles, sweet nectar along the brambles where you could also sometimes find tart little strawberries. The black garden snake that harmlessly disrupted an afternoon of blowing bubbles in the grass and running through the sprinkler. The big rock by the stream that we pretended was a spaceship. I remember the wooden rocking chair in the kitchen where grandmother made us French toast, and the wide hammock in the side yard that squirming handfuls of pale, freckled children piled in and out of. There used to be swings hanging from a tree branch by the kitchen door. Every Cochrane child, as well as quite a few Kuntzes, Watsons, and Flanagans, and the rest, we all know just how fun it is to stomp and chase each other up and down those wooden staircases, filling the whole house with echoes of laughter and little feet. I swear I remember roller skating on those wooden floors at Holly Hill, somehow dodging fancy dishes in the dining room cabinets while a whole flock of flustered adults tried to convince grandmother not to let us do it. I don't remember where grandfather was, but I'll bet he found it funny as hell. Your grandfather is a brilliant scientist, like your Uncle Ted, the grown-ups would say. He made very important discoveries. He was also a successful politician who fought to desegregate schools. He always seemed stoic and reserved to me, but I know that eye twinkle. I get it when I'm about to start good trouble. I know that smirk, too. I wear it right before I open my mouth to speak truth to power. Maybe I only remember him sitting in a comfortable chair smiling at my antics, but I have no trouble believing grandfather fought the good fight in his day. It runs in the family, or so I'm told.